How the newest Pacers can help the team, part 2. Deep dives this time into the rookies, Johnny Furphy, Tristen Newton, and Enrique Freeman under the microscope. How can they help the Pacers today and in the future? We'll break it all down today on the Locked On Pacers podcast.
You are Locked On Pacers, your daily Indiana Pacers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What up, y'all? Happy Friday, and welcome into another edition of the Locked On Pacers podcast, where we, of course, talk about the Indiana Pacers. As always, my name's Tony East. I cover the team for Forbes and SI, and today, hello from the past. I'm recording this way in advance because I'm gone on my own bachelor party, so a little strange, and if breaking news happens between now and then, bummer. We'll get to it later, because today, we're going back in time a little bit. Finally had a chance to watch some tape, to review the numbers, to look at shot charts for the Pacers rookies, Johnny Furphy, Tristen Newton, Enrique Freeman, and we're going to dive into the second and final round of this summer's How They Can Help series, which is something I love to do because I get to learn more about the players and then share them with you. So the newest Pacers, details about all of them. The first episode was all about James Wiseman, Cole Swider, and a little bit of Quentin Jackson. Today was all about the rookies. Again, Johnny Furphy, Tristen Newton, and I just finished up doing Enrique Freeman. So perfect time to dive into all this. Hope you guys learned something. I really, really love doing these. And I think everybody wants to start with Johnny Furphy. And let me be clear. Don't be the wet blanket loser who comments something like, if these guys are helping the Pacers this year, something has gone horribly wrong. Yeah, duh. I think for all three of these guys, G League is going to be the significant source of their first season, and they're likely not going to help the Pacers now, but could in the future. And that's what you draft guys for. And that's what these skills translate to for Mathurin. Even Jarris Walker played more in the G League than the NBA last year, which means I almost guarantee, barring catastrophic injuries, Johnny Furphy, a second-round pick, would go down the same path, even though he does have a full NBA deal and not a two-way contract. So we begin with Mr. Furphy. Very fun to dive into his play because he's really well-rounded, right? He could shoot it pretty well. His cuts were strong. He actually defended better than I expected, but he kind of reminds me of O'Shea Brissett in a way, not like their skill sets are comparable in any way, but he's a kind of low mistakes player. I tend to gravitate towards those kind of guys, right? Very low turnover numbers. His turnover rate was barely over 10%. His foul rate wasn't particularly high, but still efficient shooting on good usage, got rebounds, got steals, right? All sorts of stuff that I like. So he's not gambling, but he's making positive plays, and a lot of his air quotes mistakes are just like misses, which are bad, obviously, but I think that is a good starting point for me. I like that in players, right? Even if you are missing shots, like that allows you to be on the floor. And you guys all saw what he can do in Summer League in terms of the volume of threes, the cuts. That game, his best game, that game against the Timberwolves, he was like aggressive, getting to the rim at the right times, running guys off the line. When it came to just overall efficiency, like on every play that Furphy finished the play for Kansas, 1.113 points per possession for Furphy last year. 94th percentile of all college players as a freshman, as a 19-year-old freshman, right? Like that alone is a sales pitch. A lot of these stats are from Synergy, by the way. Good way to sort through play type data. And that is like enough of a proof about the low mistakes in his like intelligent offensive style, just understanding what's going on and where his shots can come from. And, oh, look, I can finish that play. I will. The best thing, and this will be a theme today, right? This stood out to me even back at the draft, is a lot of these guys, Freeman, Furphy, and Newton, best skills, or an area they were very good, is transition in the open floor, right? And we learned about this in the Pacers pre-draft workouts. I think it was the one Newton was at where we asked the most questions about this, but the Pacers did a lot of transition drills, open court work in those workouts, because in this era of the Pacers, given everything they've done this summer in terms of re-signing, signing, etc., they're going to be a high transition team, or like a moderately high transition team. Furphy, with Bill Self's Kansas program, 84th percentile transition player, 1.29 points per possessions. You got to do that with the Pacers. If you can't play in transition, if you can't find spots in the open floor and finish plays, you're just not going to play, right? So that was a strength of his, and he got threes up in transition too. We saw that at Summer League as well. His volume was high. That's one of the most transferable stats from Summer League to the NBA is three-point volume. He shot 35.2% at Kansas. Really good spot-up shooter. 1.33 points per possession on spot-up. 98th percentile, right? Anything in the 80s and 90s is really good. You know, like there's some college players who stink, but if you're in the high 90s, Really good spot-up shooter. So if he catches very few dribbles or no dribbles, good chance of it going in. That, of course, will matter a lot in the NBA. But if you can run in transition, get to a spot, get up a good volume of threes, and make them, I already have a role for you on this NBA team, right? So that you could stop the sales pitch right there, right? Smart player, doesn't mess up that much, and can shoot it. Draftable guy. They got him in the second round. The expectations shouldn't be more than the pick he was actually picked at, but that already is a good sales pitch of like what this guy could eventually do to help the Pacers. From the corners, he was awesome. Over 40% from the left corner. I think over 50% from the right corner. Important shot. And something about the way he operated from the corners kind of built out the rest of his game. You'll notice in a lot of clips, I shared some of him operating in pick and rolls, which is not something I expect him to do in the NBA, but a lot of the times he would get the ball at Kansas was very Doug McDermott-esque in that he would be lifting from the corners and then curling around something, whether that was a defender, a screen, a handoff, whatever, and then attacking from there. And that looked a lot more natural for him than just like catch, turn, look, here comes a screen kind of stuff. So I wonder if, as his NBA career progresses and as his time with the Pacers grows, if you start to see a lot of that kind of stuff. He starts in the corner and he lifts from there, and the advantage comes from what happens off the ball or right on the catch, how he reacts, or if there's no open shot, he just takes it, right? Like, I think that will be a very common way you see him used, especially early on as they kind of grow his game out from there. Because if you can shoot from the corners, you got to be guarded in the corners. And yet, when he would get to the rim, also good stuff, 74.2% at the basket. And if you're going to get run off the line in the NBA because you shoot a lot of threes and you make a lot of threes, you got to be able to finish. Johnny Furphy did that. I shared, again, clips of him doing pick and roll stuff at Kansas. I think I only did makes for him. I did not do only makes for Newton and Freeman. I can't remember for clips. I think Furphy misses one of them, but there were pick and roll stuff where he had quality finishes at the basket, right? So enough variety on offense to be encouraged that like maybe this won't just be a shooter if you're the Pacers, right? Okay, great. If you're just a shooter, that's fine. That player can still play, as we've seen in the NBA for the last half decade. But if you can actually do something when you're run off the line or when teams are really taking that shot away from you, that's good. Defensively, he was actually pretty good defending pick and rolls. Jayhawks allowed 0.633 points per possession when Furphy was defending the ball handler in pick and rolls. That's pretty good. And in the NBA, guess what? There's pick and rolls all the time. All the time. So I don't particularly think he's going to be a great defender. He's going to have to add a lot of size, right? He's too thin right now. He'll tell you that. Anyone who covers the Pacers or watches the Pacers or is around Johnny Furphy will tell you that. But if he already can be positionally sound, use his arms the right way, and slow those plays down, that's a good place to start. Obviously, you'd rather to see somebody be good there than not. So I think that was an effective part of his defense. 5 rebounds per game at his size is nice, coming from the wing where he's on the perimeter. Good advanced stats in terms of rebound rate, true shooting percentage over 60, low turnover rate I already talked about, all good steal and block rates. All these things I'm saying were like a big part of the sales pitch for Johnny Furphy as a first-round pick, right? Like that was where he was projected every day of this pre-draft cycle until literally the day of the draft. He did fall. There's reasons he fell. Teams didn't like. I don't know. I'm just maybe it was his size. Maybe it was the lack of experience. He committed the program late. He didn't start till halfway through the season. I don't know, but there's a lot of indicators that are like, at worst, this guy could be a movement guy who can get up threes. Will he make them? That might be important. It's obviously going to be important. Will he do anything else? That will obviously be important. But he'll have a G League season, I'd imagine at least one, to develop a lot of this stuff and see what's coming on. And it's a good route for developing second-round wings to go. I watched all sorts of second-round picks in the G League over the years. So I don't know when Johnny Furphy is going to officially be, let's go, this guy needs to contribute for the Pacers, right? Probably not this year. But when it does happen, I would expect that if it is happening, it's because he has a varied offensive game that's built out from a three ball and an ability to react to the way he's defended from three and a good enough length-based defensive impact to be useful on that end of the floor. He's on a 4-year deal, so they got plenty of time to develop him in the Haliburton era and make him into a better player. But that's kind of the sales pitch to me right now of what this guy could be and how he could help the Pacers one day. But again, I'd like to remind people, I'm actually pretty intrigued by Furphy. One, because he was projected to go much higher than he was, and two, because his summer league was pretty fun to me, an interesting type of player. I think it is important to remember he went 35th in a draft that was considered not very good, right? So keep that expectation in mind, even though I do think that he has a path to being an NBA player. And the Pacers have done well in that with picks in, that early second round range, either via trade or actually via picking a player. So looking forward to watching Johnny Furphy. Let's go to the Summer League standout next, and then instead of going in pick order. So we'll go to Enrique Freeman. Man, was he fun to watch the tape of at Akron. Let's talk some Enrique Freeman, pick number 50. Before we get to that, though, we got to talk quickly about eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Because whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you will always find exactly what you're looking for. And plus, with eBay's Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time, or you will get your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. So keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay's Guaranteed Fit is only available to U.S. customers. Back here on Locked On Pacers, thanks for making us your first listen today and every single day. Make your second listen Locked On Women's Basketball because, right, the day before I recorded this, the Fever clinched a playoff spot. Not sure if they've actually talked about that or not, but there's a lot of fun stuff going on in the WNBA playoff race, and Locked On Women's Basketball have it all. They just interviewed Notre Dame women's head coach Neil Ivey. Also, lots of good stuff there all the time. I work with all those people. They're tremendous, and that podcast is great. I learn something every single time. Let's keep rolling here on the Pacers and move to Enrique Freeman. So finding full Akron games was hard. I was able to find some, but I load up Synergy after watching some Enrique Freeman, and holy smokes, it was like comedy. There's I don't really use this page as much on Synergy, but when you load up a player's profile page, it like very generically lists all their possessions, right, from the last season. And I'm only telling you this because I took a screenshot because Enrique Freeman's was very funny to me. Okay, so it starts with all possessions. 594 of them are Enrique Freeman finishes the play for Akron. 1.084 points per possession. That is rated as excellent, right? Very high percentile. I'm just going to read you the points per possession rating from now on and not the actual numbers, but here you go. All possessions, Enrique Freeman graded out as excellent. Transition, excellent. Out of bounds from the end of the floor, excellent. Overall half court, excellent. Out of bounds side, excellent. After timeouts, excellent. Last 4 seconds of the shot clock, excellent. Against man, excellent. Against zone, excellent. Half court, very good. So the only things that he didn't get, he got a few things he didn't get excellence in, but it's just like all up and down the floor. The highest verbiage that Synergy offers was everywhere. And I didn't even really use those numbers for any of the stuff I did, but I took a screenshot right away. So I was like, I think this is the most excellence I've seen on one player's page. The sales pitch for him is really interesting because, you know, he kind of has it like, he certainly expanded this, and we'll talk about this in a second, but like around the rim, he was awesome. He's got a very throwback game. He's very patient. He can finish these little like hooks and turns and stuff. And again, you watched him in Summer League, you can see that he's all hustle all the time, right? The sales pitch start for Enrique Freeman before diving into any specific play types is that his rebound rate was absurd, almost 25%, over 33% on defensive rebounds. 6% block rate is crazy good, right? True shooting percentage, almost 65. He had a true shooting percentage as a sophomore, over 70%. He didn't play a ton, but that's still like ridiculous. What are these numbers, right? Oh, 65% was his college career true shooting. He's very good around the basket. But a lot of the stuff that stood out to me was, well, one, that he could like every play type thrive, and two, that he really added perimeter stuff, right? And it wasn't just lip service. You heard this from him, you know, in the after the Pacers picked him, right? When did you know that the NBA was a reality for you, right? That's a very common question because you learn a lot about a guy's basketball journey from that. And he said he went through the pre-draft process in 2023, had like 2 or 3 workouts with teams, and he got the same feedback. Like, he's got to be a more modern center. You can tell he took it to heart immediately, right? He took 6 threes his first 4 seasons at Akron combined. He took 54 in year 5. 5 of those 54 threes were trail threes, which is like, you have to have you know how much confidence you have to take a 3 in transition as a big man who took 6 threes total in 4 years. He only made 1 of them, but that to me was like a light bulb moment of just like, oh man, he is like really committed to this. Really mobile. I've always had a thing for bigs who like run like a gazelle. I didn't really think of Enrique Freeman like that at first glance, but when you really dive into his transition plays, he totally does. So the effort stuff, the hustle stuff, the speed, the energy, that immediately pops when you watch his accurate stuff. But then you dive into the specific play types instead of the zoomed out ones that I just ran through was excellent, and it still looks really good. 0.979 points per possession on post-ups, 75th percentile of all college players. I don't think you'll see a lot of Enrique Freeman post-ups in the NBA because nobody posts up in the NBA. But he's very crafty. He turns, he finishes, he does all this fancy stuff to score. Over 60% on twos every year. Does good enough at the foul line, and he draws fouls. Took over 6 free throws a game the past season. Right, good. Okay, you're happy with that as an end of possession outcome, but you're not like running a play to get an Enrique Freeman post up. Still, that's solid. 1.3 points per possession on putbacks. Very good. Almost 80th percentile. Beast on the glass. We know that. If you watch Summer League, you know that a big part of Enrique Freeman standing out and looking like perhaps the best player on the team compared to expectations was the hustle, the work on the glass. 1.34 points per possession as a roll man, 88th percentile. That's excellent. That is the big one, right? If he's going to be a very good modern big in the NBA, screen, roll, catch, make a play. He's not like when he's really overpressured by lots of defenders where he can't just turn and see vision. That's when he's at his worst. But if he rolls and it's just him and one other guy or him in space, he's getting a good look, right? I think that's the next evolution of his game is playing well in traffic, which adding perimeter skills made it so he was less in traffic last year. But I'm still very impressed by the pick and roll abilities. Awesome cutter, 1.43 points per possession on cuts. That's also excellent, 85th percentile among all college players last year. A lot of his cuts were just like he's on one side of the floor, the ball goes to the other, he waits a sec, he rotates around the post up and like dives under, and boom, he's open on the block or on the baseline, and then he would make a play from there. Very crafty, good at timing those plays, or like when he would roll and the roll wasn't there, but then the ball would go to the wing and then the roll was there. He knew the angles very well of that kind of stuff. That is going to matter a lot. Guys who know the angles, that typically translates pretty quick. That's a good like basketball IQ kind of thing, right? I think that should, even in the G League on a two-way deal, be something that pops. Here's the theme one again. 1.33 points per possession in transition, 89th percentile. This is a big man. Again, when he hits the floor running, there goes that gazelle. Boom, long strides, pumping the arms, beating the guys to spots. A lot of transition plays where he would get the block or the contest and then be the first guy down the floor for a bucket, right? Every coach loves that, and that will be a skill at every level of basketball. You give a lot of effort, you're going to get some mop-up buckets. Just average on spot-ups, but yet that's fine. He's a big man. That's actually kind of good for what you'd expect of him as a shooter. He certainly appears to like driving and attacking going left, which is unique, but that's because from the left side, there's more space to turn over his left shoulder and kind of dump it in like he likes to do. So just a really, really impressive player on tape. The effort stands out a ton. The speed and transition stands out a ton. Like not a ton of like, oh, wow, this is so obviously a modern stretch big kind of stuff, but like did not look uncomfortable doing all those things. Player, really, I walked away even more interested in what Enrique Freeman could be as a pro than I was before this whole exercise. I'm looking forward to watching him this year. If he can continue to grow as a quote unquote modern big man, there's something here. There's something with this guy to keep an eye on. And his summer league was already a sign of that, but now there's a lot of like, oh, this could be something the Pacers are happy with for a while. Now we go to the final one, Tristen Newton, who is the type of guard that I love. His college career was kind of like 3 college careers. What is that going to look like for the Pacers? This show is sponsored by BetterHelp. Kids are always learning. They're always growing. But then you become an adult and you lose that curiosity. What's something you'd like to learn? Gardening? A new language? Maybe finally how to beat your best friend in bowling? For me right now, it's chess. Therapy can help you reconnect with your sense of wonder, because your back to school era can come at any age, and therapy can also be helpful for learning positive coping skills, setting boundaries. It empowers you to be the best version of yourself. It is not just for people who have experienced major trauma. So if you have been thinking about starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. You just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist. You can switch therapists anytime for no additional charge. So rediscover your curiosity with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/LockedOnNBA today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOnNBA. We are back here on Locked On Pacers. Thanks for making us your first listen on this lovely Friday. Hope you had a great week. Let's talk some Tristen Newton. For those of you who, remember, before Summer League, after the draft, I was talking a lot about this type of player being something that I personally really like. Tall guards, tall creators. And Tristen Newton's college career is really fascinating because this is kind of what made me interested in him too, as a guy they picked late. And a lot of draft guys I like really like Tristen Newton. His last 3 college seasons were all totally different. He had to be a totally different player every time, right? His final season at East Carolina before transferring to UConn, 18 points a game, 5 assists, still that good rebounder, but shot a ton, almost 13 times a game. That's the most he took in college, right? That's what proved that he was good enough to play at UConn. That was the most steals he got. He was like the scoring guard. You have the ball a lot, go score, but also set up your teammates, right? And that was his best scoring season. Then the next season, 10.1 points per game, but good assists on a UConn team that had other guards. His turnovers were way down, and he shot more threes. And, he shot better from 3. That team got up a lot of threes. They were accurate from 3. His job was more connector on that UConn team as opposed to what happened his final season with the team. But the 2 UConn teams he was on were very different. But the first one had Andre Jackson, had Jordan Hawkins. He wasn't getting as many shots. He had other guys like Andre Jackson who can move the ball. He was more of a connector type. Then the next season, with those 2 gone, Stephon Castle emerged, but Newton was way more featured. 11 shots a game, right? Getting up way more threes, 5.5 per game. Way more assists. His career best 6.2 per game. Way more rebounds, 15 points. He went from really high score at East Carolina to connector to like scoring point guard / creator for everyone on 2 national title teams, 2 different roles. That's what stood out to me at first, besides just like, oh, this is a 6'5" guard. And I love taller guards. I've said that too many times. I apologize. So just a fascinating prospect to me. And then his summer league was not good. Not good at all. I wrote a story on it. Like, I think that I didn't care as much because the outline for what he could be was so obvious to me. But obviously the efficiency not being there was not good. It was not there in college either. His best true shooting percentage in college was 57.5. Right. That's still good. But you'd hope for a little more. That said, again, a guy with over 10% rebound rate as a guard, over 30% assist rate his last season, right? Not a crazy turnover rate for how high of usage he had. I still just think the framework is too obvious to just say, oh, those 5 games ruin it for me, even though they were not very good. So let's talk about what Tristen Newton did very well and what he did not do very well at UConn. Awesome floater, which is a thing that comes from his size. He could just flip the shot over defenders. When he got into the lane, bucket, right? That was great. 28.8% of his scoring possessions his final season with the Huskies came from pick and rolls, where he was the ball handler. 0.901 points per possession. That was the 76th percentile. And if you include instances where he passed, which is what I tweeted clips of, because I tweet clips of one thing for all these guys, that's up to 85th percentile. Good lobs, good patience, right? And that, like Nembhard, in Nembhard's first summer league, not his second one, is something that stood out to me, where he, unlike Freeman, when Tristen Newton's in traffic, he's very good at keeping his dribble moving around productively in a way that he can set up his teammates and keep things going, make good passes. The offense doesn't die when he gets pressured. And I think that's very important for a point guard to do. He makes quick decisions, quick actions, right? No matter what level he's in, G League or pro, he's going to make that happen. Loves to drive right. You saw that in summer league, a lot of right elbow jumpers for him when he was looking for the space. Here you go. Transition, 1.106 points per possession. That's 60th percentile. That's the worst of these 3, still above average, right? That's going to matter a ton. If you can't push in transition, if you can't find open guys, if you can't finish plays in transition, you're not going to fit very well in the Pacers, especially as a guard. I think Newton in transition is actually a better finisher than initiator, which will be an interesting kind of thing for him to blend through in the pros, but it's still going to matter to be able to do both, especially at his size. He could play multiple positions. It's hard to kind of define what position he plays, right? It's so natural to say point guard because of that last UConn season, but it wasn't always like that for him in college. So 1.3 points per possession on unguarded catch and shoots. It's very good. It's pretty close to Furphy level, even though Furphy's thought of more as a shooter than Newton is. So looking forward to that. He shot over 60% from the right corner, right? He is very much a right side of the court initiator, right side of the court where he's comfortable, where he likes to make stuff happen. But defensively, this is actually interesting. So like with Freeman, I walked away more impressed by his motor, though it was already something I knew was good, and his perimeter game. Newton, I walked away more impressed with his defense than I already was from summer league and what I knew already. His size is very overwhelming. His frame makes it so smaller players just can't do anything. It's really hard to get by, right? If he's in a stance, he's got a chance to get a stop or make a play every time. right? Every time. Every young player's team defense needs to get better, but Newton's on-ball defense might be the best of anyone the Pacers just drafted, right? When defending pick and rolls, he was great. They conceded 0.67 points per possession. When Newton was defending the ball handler at UConn last year, that's a 72nd percentile. His size is helpful there in stopping making turnovers and just forcing a miss, being in the right spot. Really good stuff. Helps Neil Donovan clinging next to you. But guess what? Those stats were pretty good the year before, too. Sanogo was also pretty good. But still, working with a good big man defender, he was very good at shutting those down. His isolation defense, though, elite. His best thing, right? The clips are special. The game footage is special. There's a reason that Purdue guards, as many of you know, struggled in the national title game. 96th percentile isolation defender was Tristen Newton last year, right? Again, if he's on you and in a stance and engaged in the on-ball defense, his effort, his mobility, his size, he's shutting you down, right? And that can go a long way in making him an effective player, even if the efficiency never comes. If you can guard, you got a spot in the league, especially at his size as a 1, but he's got to be a 1. If he's a 2 at that size and can only guard, you got to add something offensively, like Ben Shepherd's shooting, for example. So that's going to be the key thing, is any offensive skill besides actually really any offensive skill, because I think the defense is going to be his best thing. But he can do a little bit of everything, right? That was the sales pitch coming out of college. Good rebounding numbers, good passing numbers, good scoring numbers at his size, shot creation ability, good reacting to defenses, making the right play, and good defense. At 6'5", that's something. You can build from there, right? You can put him in any lineup, and it will not be subtractive. So I still, the Summer League was what it was, but I'm still intrigued and think that there could be something here for Tristen Newton. But to be a consistent rotation player, he's got to become like elite or very good at some offensive skill. And right now he has a lot of stuff he's pretty good at, needs to get to something that he's great at after that Summer League. We'll see what that actually could be. But Gennaro Pargo, the head coach of that Summer League team, said, hey, his growth from start to finish the Summer League was huge, tremendous, right? He got a lot more confident and understood the offense a lot better. His last game was the best. He got to the foul line a bunch, right? A lot of stuff that suggests his size could matter in the pros. Hope you guys learned something about any of these new Pacers rookies. Looking forward to watching them. Training camp coming, like a month. Preseason game. I think they play a preseason game like a month from when this comes out. Maybe it's even before that. I can't remember how the calendar works. Next Monday, TBD what we're talking about, because I'll probably be back in time for that episode, but we'll see. I want to talk about a topic that someone suggested to me in a YouTube comment, which is, for this Pacers core to win a title, what will it take? What number of things could go right or wrong for that to happen? Next week, we'll also look at some awards the Pacers could be in the mix for this year. I want to look back at Kevin Pritchard's past off seasons. I want to do the best center seasons for the Pacers in their history. Lots of stuff to get to as we race towards this season. Hope you guys enjoyed this episode and have a lovely weekend. We'll be back on Monday talking more Pacers. Till then, everybody have a wonderful weekend.